Within living memory, there was a time when businesses greeted you as a customer, helped you find items, and refrained from opening move hostility toward patrons who are volunteering to give that business money to pay staff salaries. Well, those days are gone. But we can have them back if we stop pretending that we don't understand how to transact business and serve customers instead of abusing them. We're going to nip back to 1992 to see the difference in corporate employee training then and now. Did you catch last week's show with guest host Scott Kim? If not, I think it's one of the best episodes we've done, and I wasn't in it. We're going to take a look at a cluster B mother, far crazier than mine, and enhanced with Korean spice. Then we're going to sing the praises of the ultra-rich. Without the noblesse oblige of the elite class, America would not have the beautiful objects, houses, and history that some of our wealthiest citizens have bequeathed to us. I'm going to take you on a tour of one of those collections tonight on Disaffected, the show that talks about politics, culture, and relationships through a psychological lens. It's May 31st, 2026, and I'm Josh Slocum. Now, as you know, I was off the show last week, and our friend Scott Kim sat in for me. I am urging you to go back and watch his episode, Miso Traumatized. It's up on all video platforms now. If you caught the live stream on YouTube, you know that the audio was cooked, but that's all fixed now. Rumble, YouTube, X/Twitter. You can catch that episode. When I watched Scott tell the stories of his violent Korean mother, I was genuinely shocked. And I think I might have been shocked the same way a first-time viewer of this show might be shocked hearing some of the candid descriptions that I've given of my abusive mother. But Scott's mother, she was far worse. We've got a couple of clips for you. Let's roll this one.
Most people don't reflect. In my mom's case, she didn't have that ability. There was no reverse gear built into her mechanism. There was only ever adding and accumulating. Other than blood and body weight, she did not shed anything. Even when she broke my dad's back under the weight of her expectations, there were still 2 kids who she could try to whip to drag her to Happy Land, a place she imagined where she'd won the American dream of making all the other Asian women jealous, envious. Fortunately, when my dad died, she was ostracized from her Asian women friends. My sister said that other Asian women were wary she'd try to steal their husbands away. Until nature taught her how to subtract and began to remove people out of her life, my mom could put on one hell of a show. There were many gears she could switch into, reverse not being one of them. She could win over teachers by flashing a wide beaming smile. She could burst into tears if pleading in front of an officer. She could act stupid and dumb and play into the Asian, no speak a good English facade. There were many skills she had. There was no limit to what she was willing to do to get what she wanted. And there was no limit to her dissatisfaction. I'm so glad she's dead. One less Mao Zedong in the world's population, one less prison guard, one less vampire. The worst thing is that nobody believes you when you tell them any of this. I stopped trying to get my point across to people I grew up with. They'd swear I was making it all up, these endless and quite bizarre stories of being raised Asian. Until one day, a stunned longtime buddy of mine I'd known since 7th grade slept over on the couch.
And if you want to hear what happened, and then what happened, and then what happened after that, go back and watch Miso Traumatized this week with Scott. He's also pretty damn funny, so I got to give you one more to tempt you.
But apparently your mom's been telling her coworkers how successful her kids are. Yeah, nope, still not a doctor, never will be. We could never be the children of her dreams, so she went ahead and dreamt some up to brag about. welcome to a news segment portion of show. It's me, your host, Scott's Asian Half.
All right, that ought to be enough to entice you. Thank you, Scott and Kevin, for getting the show out when I couldn't do it. So Scott tells the tale of how he was made into a servant, a product for his mother's use. I'm going to tell you a news story about how my mother did that to me. Men who are listening to this show tonight, I'm talking especially to you. Some of you are going to recognize yourselves in this story. You're going to recognize how you've been beaten down by a demanding mother or maybe a wife. But there's good news too. There is a positive, it's not a happy ending, but there's a positive resolution. And I enacted that resolution. I made it real for myself. And it's how I finally became a grown-up man starting at age 41. I would like you to achieve that too. Women who are listening to this show, I hope this might help you better understand your husbands or boyfriends who've been under the thumb of a narcissistic mother, because this is going to seriously affect your marriage. Trust me, I see it among my clients. So it was 2014. That year, I bought a second house that I couldn't afford in order to give my mother an affordable place to live. It was a terrible mistake made when I was someone who did not understand the reality of who my mother really was and how I had been mentally conditioned by her abuse my entire life. Today, I know, if that sounds surprising to you, before 10 years ago, I would never have admitted my mother was abusive. I said things like, she's a saint. Well, today I know that my mother has both borderline and narcissistic personality disorders. That's why I spent years paying off her back rent, begging landlords not to evict her, running interference for her with other creditors. My mother was poor because she was lazy and irresponsible. She was able to continue this lifestyle because, trained from childhood as my mother's servant, surrogate husband, and savior, I believed that it was my moral duty to sacrifice for her. It's been 10 years since I've spoken to her, and I will never speak to her again. So in 2014, we were standing in the kitchen of the upstairs apartment in that house I bought. My handyman, my friend who was helping refurbish the house, he was coming in and out, finishing odds and ends. Paul, I'm going to call him. My handyman is a working class redneck. He's the proverbial rough around the edges guy with a heart of gold. He has very little filter on his mouth, as most people like that do. But it doesn't have anything to do with the decent, helpful person that he is. And he's still my handyman today. Paul's work renovating this foreclosed upon house that I bought is what gave my mother a clean, equipped apartment to live in for half the price of a market rate apartment. Paul made some off-color joke at me involving women. I don't remember what it was. I do remember that it was kind of working class bar humor that was common in many places in the 1970s and 80s, especially for working class people like my family. It was the kind of bawdy male humor about women and sex that would have gotten in those days, would have gotten a guy affectionately bopped on the nose by his wife or by the women at the bar, and they would laugh along and serve it back with a small dick joke. That's when people had senses of humor. That is to say, it was the kind of joke that was considered normal, if low class, banter, until it became the kind of joke that women look at and scream misogyny. We're going to pick that story back up in a little bit. I used to be a simpering man, a leftist male feminist, a servant for my mother, and an emotional doormat for most of my female friends. I mean it when I said that I was raised this way from birth. I thought this was normal. My deep fear was that I was actually born bad because I was born male. My mother made sure that all men who had contact with our family growing up were violent and irresponsible, and she made sure to use that to excuse her unforgivably bad choices in men and what her children were exposed to by those choices. Too many men today think this is normal interaction with a woman. What used to happen only in homes with a personality disordered mother like mine now happen everywhere you look, at every level of culture. Women can utter the word misogyny anytime they like, and respectable, normal society will succor them for doing it. Society will often go further than that and will punish, shun, debank, or make unemployable the man that she is accused, whether he did anything actually punishment worthy or not. So that day in 2014 happened before I had my what I call my awakening about the reality of my mother's personality pathology. That awakening turned into a much bigger realignment of my cultural, political, and moral priorities. It was the catalyst that changed my mind from being a leftist liberal to a conservative over a period of years. But I was beginning to get clues back in 2014. I had not lived anywhere near my mother since the age of 12 when I was institutionalized in a juvenile delinquent home for boys. After escaping as an emancipated minor at age 16, I lived on my own, far away from my mother, until I brought her back into my life, back into my own house at age 39. They allowed me to forget the abuse and rewrite it in my mind as not so bad so that I could live out my fantasy of us living together as a loving family. And the second thing that happened was that being away from my mother for so long made her usual behaviors, the fake victimhood, the false accusations, reversing the truth, screaming, calling people names, it made those things seem foreign to me for the first time in my life because I'd been away from her. I had lived around enough normal people for long enough to now be able to notice how insane and disordered my mother's behavior had always been. Let's pick the story back up from 2014. So Paul, my handyman, when he made that off-color joke, my mother put on a face of aggrieved horror. She shouted that she was a woman, and as a woman, she was offended. She didn't quite lose her shit all the way in front of everybody, but it was squirmingly uncomfortable. I knew that she was expecting me to immediately chastise Paul in front of her and everyone else who was there, and I didn't do that. And that was the first time in my life that I did not perform white knight for my mother. When Paul left, the rage came out. She started screaming. How could you let that man say such a misogynistic thing about me? I'm a woman and that's about people like me. How dare you not defend me? And I've toned it down. It was much louder and much crueler than that. So I cowered. My heart was racing and my stomach was in knots. And if you are a man, if you're not a man, if you have not been raised by an abusive mother from childhood, you may have a hard time understanding that feeling, that cowering, that shrinking. It seems strange to be that deeply mortally afraid of your mother. I know that. I know it does. But I was, and it was real fear. It wasn't just a fear of, oh, she'll be unpleasant to me if I don't give in. It was a fear that my lack of defending my mother in that moment meant that I was bad and that I was corrupt on a fundamental soul level because I was male, just as my mother had always said since I was a child. So I apologized. I said I failed in my duty. I told my mother how very sorry I was. It was pathetic, but it needed to happen. I needed to have my nose rubbed in it, and I needed to witness my own complicity in my degradation, and that's what I was doing. I was cooperating in my own degradation. I didn't learn all the lessons that day, but it was the beginning of an important one. And the memory of that interaction obviously stayed with me. Over the next couple of years, my mother's behavior became psychotic. And I mean that clinically and literally. I'm not using it metaphorically. I'm not using it as a verbal intensifier. I mean psychotic, disconnected from reality. She threatened to put a hole in her disabled husband's head, and she bragged about it. She threw heavy skillets at him so hard that she put a hole in the drywall of the apartment, and then laughingly bragged about it to my sister as an example of women not taking men's shit anymore. She became paranoid, and she started insisting that strange people were driving up the road, this country road we live on, as if no one else lives on the road. They do. She insisted that she needed motion detector lights and security systems and all sorts of things just to be safe. In reality, what my mother wanted was to see me running at her every command, spending money at her direction, and centering her emotional thunderstorms in my life to the exclusion of my own needs. If you're interested in more detail about this, there are several episodes of this show that tell the story. They're from early on in our run in 2021. The very first episode we did is called Mommy Issues, and it's the origin story. In a nutshell, it's the story of my life, my childhood torment at the hands of my mother, and how we came to where we are now societally in this show. Actually, it sets the stage. Go to our YouTube, especially on YouTube, it's easy. Go to our YouTube channel and click on the videos tab, then just sort them from oldest to newest. So you'll get the first one and then you can watch the others. You might also want to check out 2 more episodes, again, from the first half of 2021. Called Over the Borderline Part 1 and Over the Borderline Part 2. That's a behind-the-scenes look of growing up under my mother's regime. So again, if you sort them from oldest to youngest, you'll find them pretty quickly on YouTube. In 2016, 2 years after that, with the help of my sister, I woke up to my mother's personality disorder. I didn't know what those were then. My sister helped me to understand that. And my first action as a truly grown-up man was evicting my mother in court and forcing her off my property. Before that, I was not a man. I was a scared little boy who had been turned into a servant for an insatiable and cruel woman. And I thought that made me good. And I cooperated with my own emotional stunting and my own emasculation for all of my adult life until I stopped. Some of you men listening right now are also little boys, not yet fully grown men. You're serving a mother like this, a sister like this, a wife like this. And if you're gay men, might be some of your female besties that you're serving this way. Please stay with me. I'm not degrading you by saying you're little boys. I was you. I'm saying it as a friend and a fellow traveler, not as an insult. But millions of chronologically adult males in the United States are not actually grown-up men. Millions more than have ever existed before our current era. We've never seen this much before today. The kind of simping that I did for my abusive mother used to be much less common. You saw it in abusive families, but it wasn't part of mainstream normal culture. Remember how we used to mock mama's boys? When was the last time you saw a mama's boy being mocked? Have you noticed how that stock character mama's boy is now held up as what good men are supposed to aspire to? And have you ever said, happy wife, happy life? If the answer is yes, you are not being a good boy. You are being abused, you are cooperating in your own degradation, and you have Stockholm Syndrome. That's right, men. Can you imagine women saying, happy husband, happy life? No. So why are you doing it? The magical spell of feminism has fully saturated every level of our society, from our private thoughts and family moments to the baseline assumptions that we operate on in public. It's real-world witchcraft. That's what witchcraft and magic is. Verbal spells and incantations work, whether you believe they do so because of metaphysical or mundane reasons. I watched it happen over 50 years. I'm old enough now to look back and see the pattern. Even conservative women today are likelier than they should be to be feminists by default. Even conservative men today are likelier than they should be to be feminist by default in their outlook. That's because our culture is by default feminist. Not the left, our whole culture. Feminist is not a term that means only wanting to be treated fairly like a human. Feminist is narcissism and ressentiment. Look it up. If you're about to object to that and say, but women should have legal rights just the same as men, you're making a mistake. You think that's what feminism means. That is not what feminism means. That is what grasping, exploitative, narcissistic people want you to believe that feminism means. It's a Mott and Bailey argument. They want you to think that if you believe women should have equal rights under the law, then you're a feminist. Not true. I'm as anti-feminist as they come. But I also believe that women should have equal rights under the law. Yeah, there are public policy debates to be had about things like police work and military combat service. It's all for another conversation. But generally, of course, I believe that women should have equal rights under the law. And I hate feminism. Feminism has been brilliantly branded and marketed. It's convinced most modern people that it's a synonym for, I think women are human. They even have that saying, feminism is the radical idea that women are human. What a joke. In that way, feminism as a political ideology has insulated itself from any normal critique, any normal investigation, and certainly from outright rejection on grounds of unfairness or incoherence, which is what it is. It's a bait and switch. It is at bottom just plain old narcissism. The unspoken assumptions that we operate on today that are feminist inflected are the following. Number one, women have always been and are today in a state of subjugation to men. All normal heterosexual interaction puts women at a structural disadvantage. Two, men are naturally born and wired to exploit women. What appears to be duty, loyalty, or natural sexual desire is actually an inborn male proclivity to rape, abuse, and extract resources from powerless females. Three, women's claims are to be believed at face value always and by default. To question them is itself an act of misogyny. And notice the word misogyny, which means hatred of women. That has silently replaced the word sexism. Do you find that as telling as I do? 4, assumption. Women are born and wired fundamentally good, fundamentally harmless, and fundamentally empathetic. Finally, if a woman is violent, if she hurts her children, if she kills them, if she kills her husband, it's because some men or the patriarchal system drove her to it. Even when she acts, even when the action she enacts is murder, she's not actually performing an action. She's instead being acted upon by the patriarchy. She just snapped because of how she was treated. She didn't do nothing. And if she did, then it wasn't her fault. And if she did, a man made her do it. And if she did, it was understandable. And if she did, maybe it was a good thing. My message to men and sons: it is not your job to serve your mother or your wife or your girlfriend the way I described. That is not being a man, that is being exploited. Honorable, normal service to women in the context of healthy relationship dynamics looks nothing like what I've described. And my message to women and daughters: personality disordered mothers abuse you just as badly as they do their sons, but they do it in different ways. They compete with you sexually. They might try to drag down your self-image, tell you that you're not smart, you'll never accomplish anything. They may accuse you of being a slut because they themselves are out trying to paint the town red past their expiration date, and they're jealous of your youth and beauty. You are not obliged to be your mother's dumping ground for that shit. Our culture's lurch to the left toward woke is bound up at the root with feminism. We cannot change that leftward lurch without coming face to face with the narcissistic, abusive, normalized societal assumptions that feminism gives us. If you recognize the feminization of our society as a problem, intellectual honesty requires you, me, us, to recognize feminism for what it actually is. It's not anything positive. And no, it didn't start out okay, but just then went off the rails recently. Go back as far as you like. Find any historical waves that you like, and I know some of you do. Oh no, it was all fine in the first wave. Do you know the first wave of feminism started in the late 1700s? We're all using the same words in different dictionaries. Feminism is one of those. It means something different to everybody. Go back and actually read the women who started these waves. You will find that it is narcissism and ressentiment all the way back. It's just that we all got taken in by the bait and switch and the branding. And if you're about to object and say, well, did you know that until the 1970s, women as a class, they just weren't allowed to have credit cards or bank accounts? That's not true. And it has never been true the way it's been presented. Retired academic and former feminist professor Janice Fiamengo, she writes on Substack, she gets at the truth about this. And maybe that message will be more palatable coming from a woman, or maybe not. Maybe the women who don't want to hear it will call Janice a ball cupper or a pick-me. But you can find out the more complicated truth about claims like that in her article from October of 2025 called Surprise, Surprise, Another Popular Feminist Claim Turns Out to Be False. And this is about the claim that women couldn't get credit cards until 1974. So be you a man, be you a woman. It is not, was not ever, and will never be your moral duty to subjugate your mind, your money, your own self-interest, or your self-respect to serve a resentful woman. Not your mother, not your sister, not your wife, not your fag hag. Decent, normal women don't demand this behavior from men. The trouble today is that too many otherwise decent, normal women who don't have personality disorders, they're not inclined to be abusive, but they believe the feminist Pied Piper's narcissistic lies. I believed them for a long time too. I guess that's enough on that topic. So we're going to take a break. Think about the phrases service with a smile and the customer is always right. Customer service in the 1990s, which wasn't that long ago, it might look to Gen Z like the customs of an alien race. But come back and we're going to do a comparison of 1990s style customer service to whatever it is we can call what's happening today in stores. You're watching Disaffected. We'll be right back. Tonight on the show, we've talked about the effect that narcissistic mothers can have on sons and how it can turn a man into a mama's boy and leave him miserable for a lot of his life. If that's something that's happened for you, it's happened for many of my clients, and you need somebody to talk to, you can book some time with me. If you're a woman, too, who has a husband or a boyfriend or a friend, a male friend who's in this situation, I've had many women like this, too, who wanted to talk about this to better understand why their husbands react this way to their mothers and how to see the way out. So if you could use somebody who has personal experience and also experience talking these issues over with other people, visit my website at joshuaslocum.net. I offer private, confidential, 1-hour sessions, usually by video, but we can do just plain old phone if that's more comfortable for you too. And you don't necessarily have to have a cluster B type problem. If you want to talk to somebody about politics, culture, and relationships and your views on them, but you don't have anyone, forgive me for the word, safe around you who won't cancel you out of their lives for having a different opinion, well, I won't cancel you. I'll be happy to have an appointment with you. If you'd like to have a talk with me, if I can help you with these issues, I'd be delighted to meet with you. So visit joshuaslocum.net, click on my calendar, see if you can find a time. And if you don't find a time there that works for you, just shoot me an email through the website. I am happy to accommodate off hours when I can. Modern customer service reminds me of the documentary Empire of Dust. That film chronicles the frustration of a Chinese railroad engineer and logistics expert who's trying to convince the Congolese, the people of the Congo in Africa, of the necessity of maintaining the first world infrastructure that China built for them. This Chinese guy discovers that the third world has no concept of personal responsibility or upkeep or maintenance, and it's like talking to an alien species.
按说是你们受欧洲国家管理这么长时间，应该是学到了很多先进的管理经验。
哪有多少时间？没有多少时间呢。我们炒那个要那个国经济啊，很炒。现在是50年，第几50年那个？
就是50年以前，你不是受他们
50年以前什么都好啊。
是啊，那个先进的影响，那个代代往传下来，越传越文明越发达了，怎么越来越倒退，越落后了？你看这么先进的铁路，我都1930几年就电气化铁路，我这是中国啥时候才有电气化铁路的？你看矿区那个铁路，电气化的双轨铁路，因为架得多好。你看现在顶上那个什么，哎呀，千疮百孔啊，破烂不堪啊！把原来留下的东西根本都没有更加的爱护保护去利用它，反而都遭到了毁灭性的重创，都成成这样子的话。只有慢慢经过几代人，就是中国说的那句话：“今人有酒今人醉，明人没酒喝凉水。”就这样子。在这个消费观念上头啊，中国人和他们这个刚果人，他们受比利时这个西方影响绝对不同。他们有钱没钱啊，该消费照消费。那潇洒的很，一发工资那几天特别潇洒。比利时我没有直接接触到，当然我接触他们这些人，因为他受比利时这个影响，应该是我想也是这样子的。男的也是，你得有钱那几天狂得很着了，过上几天你二老子回来了，再没几天就开始给你借钱了。其实他们喝酒，让他们说喝酒，他喝不了多少，他就喜欢那个，喝酒吧里喝一喝。屁股扭一扭啊，那这扭屁股这真是一绝啊！这确实是一绝啊，身材好看。
Okay, for those of you listening on audio, this is subtitled. I'm sorry about that. There's no way to get it across for you in audio only, but if you hop over on video, you can see what the guy was saying. The U.S. is becoming more third world by the year, which is no surprise as we have been importing the third world for years. But it's shown up acutely in retail transactions. This behavior is not limited to third world people. We Americans are adopting third world attitudes. And though this started before 2020, COVID put the nail in the coffin of the idea that businesses had any responsibility at all to their customers, even the responsibility not to treat them with contempt. There is no such thing as customer service in the United States any longer. There used to be. I remember it because I experienced it as a customer and I practice it as a retail staffer. We can get it back, but that requires understanding how we lost it and what we lost. It also requires laying out the unspoken assumptions that drive the current customer is always wrong attitude. McDonald's, Best Buy, Home Depot, sub in your favorite. All of them operate on these unspoken assumptions. And that's why the service at all of these places is non-existent at best and hostile most of the time. First, I'm going to describe the problem with a few anecdotes. And if this sounds familiar to you, I'm not repeating a story. This story is almost exactly like one I've told you before because this happens over and over again. I walked into Tractor Supply last week. It's a farm equipment store, pet and animal feed store. I asked the 19-year-old girl who was slouching against the counter at the front. We never used to have 19-year-old girls in heavy makeup slouching against the counter in men's stores, which is what this is, right? I asked her where the kerosene was kept, naturally. Yeah, Kevin, you remember our kerosene story? Here's another one. I asked her where it was kept. This is what she did. If we had any, it would be like down one of those aisles. So I said, mind you, she's standing in front of a computer that she has access to, right? I said, are you able to check your stock system to find out where it is, because it's been moved since last time I was here, and whether you actually have any in stock? She says, I can't leave the register. That's not what I asked. She wasn't even listening. A second employee walked me to the aisle where it was kept. And do you know what he did before he did that? Wait for it. That's right. He checked the computer. He checked the store's inventory and stock map. And then he walked me over like a normal person. But I thanked him. But when I told him about the lazy response from his front counter worker, no apology, his immediate response was to defend her. Yeah, but she's new. Okay, have a nice day to you too. It didn't even occur to him that it wasn't horrible, but slightly negative experience as a customer. It didn't occur to him to even apologize for it, to act like it was a valid complaint. And I don't think he was thinking of this, but he actually made me think worse of the store because his first response was to defend her poor service against me. I didn't do anything wrong. I didn't even have a nasty tone in my voice. That's what it's like today. I went to a casual dining restaurant recently. It's the kind of place that sells beers for local beers and $19 hamburgers. The waitress took our order. I was with a friend. She eventually sat the food on the table and walked away. There was no silverware, no napkins, no salt and pepper, no condiments, no plates for the shared dishes. None of this occurred to her. Blank. When I asked, may I have some silverware, please? And yes, I do actually speak that way. Yes, I do say, may I please have? I know. Cringe. She stared at me with a blank look. Turned around, silently, no verbal response, got the silverware, set it down, and silently walked away. Yes, I'm saying she gave me the silent treatment. It's common these days. Friend of the show, one of our supporting members, told a similar story this week. She went through the Dunkin' Donuts drive-thru, and the teen girl at the window reached out and shoved the credit card reader into my friend's face as she's hanging out of her car and stared down at her in a way that my friend described as looming. Why? She was making sure that my friend saw that she was presenting the tip screen and that she expected to be tipped at the drive-thru. My friend said, the worst part is that there's no one to complain to because no one cares. And she's right. The store manager doesn't care. The regional manager doesn't care. Corporate doesn't care. They seem to have discovered some way that they don't have to care and still keep making money. These stories stand in for hundreds of transactions that I've been in stores for the past several years. Doesn't matter if it's a chain restaurant or a corporate outlet store. Anytime the staff are younger than 40, this is what happens. Several decades ago, when I was young, I was a staffer in my teens and 20s. I worked mall retail. Then I spent about a dozen years in restaurants. I was a waiter, busboy, catering waiter, bar back. And from my first job at KB Toys at 15 years old to my last retail job when I was 28, I would have been fired on the spot if I'd behaved as these employees behaved. Immediately sent home. You're done. As a matter of fact, I was fired from my first job at KB Toys. You know why? Because I got an attitude as a 15-year-old with my manager and complained to him that I couldn't meet the dress code, which required young men to wear a tie because I hadn't received my first check and I didn't have any money and it wasn't fair. Yeah, I was a little bitch about it. So you know what he did? He said, okay, you don't have a job anymore. Clock out and go home. It was a good lesson. You don't see this anymore. This is incompetence. It's laziness. It's not doing your job. It's standing there getting paid while you neglect your work and glare at the customer. And worst of all, it tells the customer that the business has contempt for them. How did we get here? I suspect we got here by the same means that brought us young adults who cannot do arithmetic, who cannot write a topic sentence for a paragraph, and who can't sound out the word silhouette. That root can be called lack of parenting and lack of teaching in public schools. Examining that is for another time. Whatever the reason, this is where we are today, and it's something we need to fix, and it's something we can fix if we decide to. When I was in retail, there was a too hard bias toward the idea that the customer was always right. Too often, staff were expected to take abusive behavior from customers, things like name calling, lying about the order to get free food, and the manager would kiss their ass and comp the whole check and give it to them for free. It was way too far in the other direction. Now we've reversed it to the opposite extreme. The unspoken ethos is the customer is always wrong, and also he's oppressing me, a poor proletariat worker. Yeah, you've been calling people workers, healthcare workers, store workers. You didn't call them that 6 or 7 years ago. You started calling them that because worker is a Marxist term, and you just picked it up because everyone else is saying it. The Marxist lens of oppressed and oppressor has seeped so far into our cultural fabric that we see signs in restaurants saying, please remember our servers, can't call them waiters and waitresses, our servers are only paid $4.89 an hour, and a tip is part of their salary. If I'd even hinted at a message like that when I was a waiter, I would have been fired on the spot. So along with the customer hostile attitude, modern retail tries to lock down their employees' actions with extremely rigid steps and scripts. Maybe it's fear of liability. Maybe it's not wanting to pay competent managers. Maybe it's something else. But the reason every customer-staff interaction feels robotic today is because it is. Businesses no longer allow their staff to exercise judgment. You can hear it when the cashier, this is not the employee's fault. You can hear it when that cashier is working really hard to recite that oral script to you verbatim with no fuck ups, right? You can hear this. It's weird. You can tell that they're not allowed to think because if you ask a question that their script has not anticipated, they get flustered and freeze up. And again, that isn't their fault, but this is not normal. Compare today with this McDonald's training video from 1992. First, marvel at how much emphasis they put on making sure that employees are actually pleasant to customers. They care about it. But what's more surprising, you'll see it in a minute, the trainer in this video explicitly encourages staff members to use their own judgment and alter what they say in response to context. Let's roll that.
Thank you. Come again. Hi, how can I help you?
Whoa, cut! Hold it. Excuse me. Jim, come on, that's the wrong line. Help me out here. You're supposed to say, hello, welcome to McDonald's. May I take your order, please? That's the way you always say it.
Oh, Dave, sorry, but that's my fault. Well, I was talking to Jim a little bit earlier, and he said that he was feeling really stiff having to say, welcome to McDonald's over and over again. So I told him what we tell our people all the time. Say what feels natural, but say it with a warm, sincere smile. I thought it was great.
Does that sound crazy to you, her approach? Well, it used to be normal. You know, did you notice something else? The two black employees, they're not standing there talking in black sense because that was considered trashy and unprofessional. Today, welcome to McDonald's, can I take your order? If they will talk to you at all. We can bring this back if we make the choice to bring it back. Customer-employee interactions do not have to be fraught and robotic. The business world has chosen this. So I want to give a couple of guidelines that every retail establishment should return to, and they don't cost a single cent. So one of them is very obvious. Make eye contact. And do not write verbatim scripts for your employees. Walk them through customer service basics and answer their questions. Act it out. Role play it. Encourage your employees to use reasonable discretion. Tone and personality varies from person to person, and successful customer service depends on your ability to adapt. If you don't trust your staff to have the wiggle room to modify the exact words they use when they speak to customers, you're either hiring bad people or you don't know how to run a business. And if that's so, get out of it and find another trade. Obviously, greet every customer and do it pleasantly. Prepare your workstation before customers get there. Put down your phone, that's not for work time. Think as if you were the customer. Imagine what you would need as a customer, and then get that ready before you start your shift. This is a taller order, I realize, for employers in 2026, as it is sadly true that a larger percentage of young staff these days are badly or not socialized at all. Not at home, not at school. They shouldn't have to do, employers should not have to do what parents failed to do, but employers are going to have to do that if they care about the quality of their service. So if you do, good luck. All right. When we come back, we're going to close out the show with a word and picture tour of the legacy left to the public where I live by a wealthy socialite from Manhattan. There's a reason for this. Come back and let us sing the praises of the bygone elite who believed in noblesse oblige.
Thank you. Come again.
So I told him what we tell our people all the time. Say what feels natural, but say it with a warm, sincere smile. I thought it was great.
We can make Disaffected because our audience helps us do it. And if you would like to be, think of yourself as an at-large producer, we would love to have your contribution to help make this show. There's several easy ways to do it. If you want to become a supporting member and get an invitation to our private, members-only Discord chat server, which is like social media with 95% less nastiness because all the people in there are good, fun conversationalists, sign up as a monthly supporting member. It starts very reasonably at $5 to $7. You can go to disaffectedpod.substack.com or go to subscribestar.com/disaffected. You get the same content in both places. And some of what's on the show shows up there, but I do a lot of writing also that doesn't show up on the show. So I think it's pretty good value for your money. If you don't want to do another subscription, I get that. We are very grateful for one-time contributions. Simply go to disaffected.com and click on Support Us. And if you want to do it the old-fashioned way through the U.S. Postal Service, I have an inducement for you. We've got a post office box, and for those of you who have made contributions and sent checks, money orders, letters, postcards, sorry it took me a while to get through it, but I have answered all of your mail. Check your mailboxes. And what I'm offering right now, this is for people who send us something in the mail, I'm going to send you sourdough starter. This is it right here. Dried powdered sourdough starter. This is the stuff I use to make my bread, and I would like to make it available to you. And I'm calling it 4S, Sour Slocum's Sourdough Starter. So if you'd like a little bit of that in the mail, send your good wishes and a contribution to Disaffected Productions, 89 Main Street, Box 1027, Montpelier, Vermont, 05601. Let us sing the praises of rich people. We're going to take a trip to the Shelburne Museum in Vermont, which is one of the finest collections of Americana that I have ever seen. But first, I'm going to tell you about one of the best and most edible things in modern America called biltong. Our sponsors at biltongusa.com send me a box of succulent cured meat twice a month, and you should have them send you a box too. Biltong is thinly sliced, high-quality meat cured in the South African way with vinegar and spices. If you like beef jerky, you're going to love this stuff. Biltong is as far above your ordinary beef jerky as English cheddar is to Cheese Whiz. I usually choose from the varieties of beef, but you can buy more exotic meats like venison, depending on what's in season. Each slice is really thin, but it's packed with flavor, animal protein, and fat. There are no carbohydrates to spike your blood sugar and make you feel bloated and tired the way you do when you scarf down an entire bag of potato chips or crackers. I would not be happy to sell biltong to you if I didn't genuinely enjoy it. And I couldn't attest to the quality if I didn't eat it myself, and I do. So I'm being honest with you. I love this stuff. I think you will too. A box of biltong also makes a great gift for guys, especially guys that are hard to buy gifts for. Don't get us another tie. Get us a box of beef. Visit biltongusa.com and be sure to use promo code JOSH to get 10% off your order. Now, let us give thanks to America's ultra rich from a bygone era. Without them, our world would be poorer. And I know that in 2026, it sounds like I'm making a joke by saying that. The received opinion in America today is that the ultra wealthy are slavering predators bent on capitalisming poor Gen Z coffee shop employees, workers, into penury. Well, I'm not making a joke, and the received opinion is bullshit. I thank God for the ultra rich of the past who practiced the lost art of noblesse oblige. Scottish-American industrialist Andrew Carnegie built more than 1,600 public libraries across the United States alone and thousands more around the world. Your town might have one. You know them by their quality, their gracious architecture, their built-in hardwood bookcases, grand staircases. Take a look at the very first Carnegie Library. This one was built by Andrew in Braddock, Pennsylvania. Look at that Romanesque Victorian fantasy. Now compare that to a modern steel and glass monstrosity such as the Seattle Public Library, which I've been to. It's just as hideous on the inside as it is on the outside. We have fallen a long way, baby. But we have a treasure of the best of America's past where I live here in Vermont, thanks to a lady named Electra Webb. There she is on your screen. The Shelburne Museum is an idyllic paradise on the shores of Lake Champlain, outside Burlington. The 45-acre property has 39 buildings and one of the last steamships to traverse Lake Champlain, a preserved general store, an apothecary, and a lot more. And the footpath through the property, you're seeing some of it on your screen right now. Yes, that is all real. That footpath is about a mile, and it takes you through rolling hills dotted with original buildings from the colonial era through the 19th century. And I imagine, I haven't been there, but I imagine it's a bit like the Queen's Hamlet in Versailles, the palace in France, which I hope to go to. Marie Antoinette constructed, you're seeing it on your screen, a working toy village at a short distance from the main palace. It was an idealized country village with a mill, a dairy, charming little bridges over streams, and she liked to go there to get away from the frenetic court. And she used the village as a sort of proto-Montessori school to teach her children. Marie Antoinette was not actually the villain that you think she is from popular historical depictions. Well, the Shelburne Museum, I think, is like an American version. All the old buildings are actually old buildings. Nothing is a replica. Most of them were transported to the museum grounds from other parts of Vermont and New England. And as you walk by the original salt box style house from the 1700s, you see the town jail built out of stone on the other side of the path. And it's just two cells with doors made out of iron bars. But at least they gave the prisoners a stove for winter heat. And the prisoners were probably just the town drunks, right? This is a drunk tank with two cells in it. If you walk up the path a little bit, you're going to find a working print shop that still uses an old mechanical Heidelberg press. The docents, the volunteers, they'll ink up plates and they'll press flyers right in front of you to show you how events were advertised and how news was distributed before the digital age, all on working antique machines like this one. They're beautiful. Now, the museum's benefactress, Mrs. Webb, was a rich Manhattan socialite with an appreciation for antiques and early American living. She founded the museum in 1947, donating her collection of fine art, everyday objects, and antique vehicles for the delight of the public. What she left is a true gift in the best philanthropic spirit of America's old money. Mrs. Webb saved one of the last steamships to do commercial passenger service on Lake Champlain, and she had it hauled up by railroad onto dry land to be preserved. If you're ever in town, bring your kids to the Shelburne Museum. Imagine the sense of magical whimsy that you get when you're walking through this place and you crest a hill to see a 19th century steamship coming at you over the horizon. I took this picture, excuse me for the excavator, but they're doing some land work right now. That's the Ticonderoga. You can go aboard, and if you do, you will find yourself in Edwardian splendor. Look at that hallway. The dining room is like that too. You see those chairs? You can sit in them. That's one of the best parts about the Shelburne. Very little is behind velvet ropes. You get to touch most things, not everything, but most things, and you get to watch old machines come to life and do the job that they were built for. And the Ticonderoga is a paradise for boys who love mechanical toys. Go downstairs in the ship below the waterline, and all of a sudden you are next to the towering vertical beam steam engine that turned the red paddle wheels on this ship, pushing the Ticonderoga along at what was, for the time, a very brisk 17 miles an hour. Look at that piston rod. That thing is 2 stories high. Oh, it is just gorgeous. If you love machines, this place is fantastic. Let's put up the next one. You can almost crawl inside the boiler. I want to explain this to you guys really quickly. That's the inside of a steam boiler. This is the same kind of engine that would power a railroad locomotive too. You see those holes? Those are all hollow tubes. The hot exhaust gas from the firebox goes through those tubes, but everything around those tubes is a water jacket. So there's a lot of surface area from that hot gas that boils the water in there. That's what the inside of a steam engine looks like. Let's take a walk on a little bit further to the general store. And this is no twee recreation of ye old-timey store. You see this thing on your screen there? This is on the Shelburne grounds, but in Vermont, we still have general stores, and they still look like this. The inside is stocked with modern products, but they are buildings just like this. It's one of the nice things about living in this place. It's a real general store. Everything inside it is from the period. It's got an enormous cast iron stove in the middle of the room, and on either side of the room, there are dry goods behind the counter: tobacco, canned vegetables, molasses in a barrel, hardtack or ship's biscuit for sailors. It's all right there. And the docent that day was a gentleman in his 80s in a very natty tweed. He took me to the back room where there's a preserved barber shop. The general store was the barber shop, and was also the tavern. Another small room where the men would come in after work and play cards while they drank ale and rum. But beyond that, all the way in the back, is what may be one of the most perfectly preserved and extensively stocked apothecary shops in the United States, a forerunner of the modern drugstore. Let's put this up. Look at these cabinets full of, it seemed to me, almost the entire range of patent medicines sold in the United States at the turn of the 20th century. And of course, obviously, I'm featuring that beautiful kerosene lamp. That is the best preserved example I have ever seen personally of one of the most sought after kerosene lamps. It is called the angle lamp. And it was named that way because if you look to the left and the right, you see that the burners with the wicks in them, they're not going straight up and down, they jut out at an angle. It was the first oil-based lamp that was designed that way. And combined with the shades, it was designed to throw light downward and outward. And it became a mainstay and a necessity of any workshop that required good lighting. Thank you for indulging me. You know I love those oil lamps. The docent told me the museum had no idea of the lamp's history or what it was or its place in the history of commercial lighting. And they were delighted to note down some detail about this piece in their collection that they didn't know about before. That's another really fun part about going to this place. The people who work there and volunteer there and educate you are just as willing to learn things from visitors who have special knowledge as they are to impart it to you. So it's really fun. You have nice interactions with people. And before we leave the apothecary shop, would you not like to get your hands on some of the remedies that can no longer be legally sold, such as coca wine? Let me read it to you. A pleasant tonic and invigorator from fresh coca leaves. This compound of the celebrated coca, or life plant, combined with choice wine, possesses in the highest degree nutritive, tonic, and restorative qualities combined. Yeah, it's cocaine in a bottle. Give it to me. You guys, when I was young and druggy, I loved me some cocaine. Do you have girls who love dolls? Life in miniature? Be sure to take them to the 3rd floor of the very last building on the footpath at the Shelburne. They have an exhibition of doll houses and dioramas that is just magical. Look at this one. Here's a diorama scene from inside a dollhouse of a 19th century hotel lobby. And some of these, this next one especially, are so detailed and so finely crafted that you could fool yourself into believing that you were looking at a full-size room like this early American cabin. I mean, just extraordinary. No collection of doll-related ephemera would be complete, though, without that one cursed doll, and the Shelburne does not disappoint. Take a look at her. Good luck sleeping. Now, I find it difficult to do a bit like this without finding something to mock. And fortunately, Mrs. Webb provided me with that opportunity with her collection of Impressionist paintings. Now, the main home in the middle of this campus is a actually new built Greek Revival building. It features Mrs. Webb's fine art collection, Ming vases, things like that. But it also has 2 original Claude Monet paintings. And I'm here to tell you that they look worse in person than they do in the museum catalogs. I mean, take a look at this. There's a couple of huts there. Actually, it even looks better in the photograph I took than it actually looks to the naked eye. Now, I went with my friend Holly to the Shelburne, and she's an artist, so she made a beeline for the Monets. So we stood in front of this representation of some primitive huts. Just stood there for a couple of seconds. She didn't say anything, and I did. I said, "Well, it's shit, isn't it?" She said, "Yeah, that's really ugly." Not all fine art is actually fine. Sorry. But noblesse oblige is a very fine thing indeed. It is, in fact, noble. Without the Mr. Carnegies and the Mrs. Webbs, our country would be impoverished in beauty and the ability of the public to experience it. It does take robber baron levels of wealth to collect, curate, and eventually bequeath to the public examples of the finest, uplifting, aspirational, enchanting machines and art objects that show the best of what men and women can create. This is something that only the rich can do for us. So let's hear it from Mrs. Webb. All right. As you know, I was off the show last week as I took care of my dying cat, Shredder. He lived a good long life, reaching almost 20 years old, and he died on Saturday, May 23rd, 2026. I have loved and lost many cats over the years, but Shredder was special and extraordinary. I've introduced him on the show before, and I hope you got a sense of what kind of a personality he had. He was the most handsome cat I have ever met in real life. This was taken just about a month ago in the backyard. I'm going to keep, we've got another one. Do we have the one of him cuddling with Mina? This was 2 nights before he died. They have been best friends since Mina was a kitten and Shredder was a 10-year-old cat. And he took care of her, and they have snuggled and groomed each other, and Mina took good care of him when he was declining. I'm going to keep this goodbye short, as I can't say a lot more about this without crying, and I refuse to blubber in front of you on camera. So if you are an animal lover and you want to know a little bit more about Shredder's story, he was an abandoned cat and how he came into my life, check out our Substack, disaffectedpod.substack.com. I loved him very much, and I hope that he knew it, so rest in peace, sweet boy. Thanks for watching and listening. Have a good night.